in to Athletics LLC with Lamar, Lucius, Big League Chew, and my man Clyde, and the governor. You're about to be schooled in all things track and field. This is experience. Yes, sir. We are talking past, present, future. Y'all listen up. Let's go.
Happy Athletics LLC Day, everyone. Oh, that was a tough one to get out.
Easy for you to say.
I know, right? Well, we come joined on the tiles to give you another week of insight, a little debauchery, and some good getting to know you stuff. So let's get the night started.
Oh,
yes, it's going to happen tonight. I feel it. I feel it. Clyde, how are you tonight, sir?
After that intro, I'm not sure. I'm just inquisitive at the moment.
Where am I taking this, right? Governor, how are you tonight?
Pretty good. You know, it's that week. Everybody's trying to settle in and get class schedules, figuring out practice, all of that stuff. You know, every day is just another day to grind and, you know, moving towards the first day of practice.
Exactly. Sir Lucius, how are you today, sir? Tonight, sir?
I'm well. I am very well. I am rolling. I'm relaxing. I'm on vacation and just chilling a little bit.
Nice. I mean, it's not like you deserve it or anything. So, you know, it's been working a little hard lately.
Thank you.
Of course. Last but not least, Lamar, not the QB. I'm sure you'll let us know about that. How are you tonight, sir?
Oh, I don't want anybody to confuse me with the guy that plays for the Ravens. First off, I want to say a shout out to the governor for making the intro song finally. Congratulations, sir. I also want to bring to everyone's attention the ridiculousness of my background. If you're not a sneakerhead, you won't get this, but those shoes are $15,000 sneakers. So, yeah, let's get it moving. We got.
But he just bought a pair of.
I definitely did not. That's this way. If you ever see me with those on, I've been cloned and shoot me.
Yeah, it's not the real him. It's the zombie.
It's not the real me. If I was a billionaire, I wouldn't buy those.
All right. Well, jumping in and only getting into the middle of the pool, we have a question stemming off of our last week's conversation. Why do we think that it just means more? It just means more when it comes to the SEC and European athletics in regards to track and field and what's going on right now. What do we think about that mentality?
I mean, why are you laughing?
I am laughing at that question because as an SEC alumni, I reject that entire notion in comparison. Really? Absolutely. In comparison to European athletics, I don't think that is a comparison.
No, the comparison is not the SEC compared to European athletics.
That's exactly how the question was read.
No. The comparison is the SEC in comparison to everyone else, and European athletics in comparison to everyone else.
Yeah, like the stature within the population.
Great. So I'll say
so
it
the
again.
So the SEC versus all the other conferences. So
I will categorically reject the idea that the SEC cares more about collegiate track and field than other conferences. I do not accept that at all. That we have better. I say we, meaning again, I'm an alumni.
This morning?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I say we because again, I'm an alumni. The SEC has had the best collection of talent in the NCAA year.
How did they get the talent?
Not because you care more.
Answer the question, please, sir. How did they get the talent?
Because they hire the majority of the quote unquote best coaches in the country are in that conference.
And those people were hired by whom?
People who want to pay.
Athletic directors?
Yeah, sure.
Who care more?
I categorically reject that, sir. I'm
Well,
sorry.
how
It
can you
doesn't.
reject that when? Okay, so the proof is in the pudding. So
The
to
proof
say.
isn't in the pudding. The proof, just because you
What's
have more
what's the proof
money
in?
doesn't mean that you care more.
Oh, wait a minute, it's like that's not fair.
What do you mean? Of course it is.
No, it's not.
Of
Just
course it
because you
is.
have more money.
There's not
Okay,
more, sir. There is not
hold on
more
a second.
passion.
So then to steal your thunder, because you're going to say this later anyway, and there is absolutely is more passion for track and field, the SEC, and the other conferences. Absolutely, it's not even close. But
I
when
mean,
it comes
you
to
would
hold on a
say that,
second,
and I get that. But
okay, and the proof's in the pudding. But when it comes to football and basketball and baseball and the other sports, the other conferences seem to have the money to pay those coaches. So why can't they pay track coaches? Because they don't care as much.
Okay, so if we want to turn this conversation into a salary-based issue, we can.
You brought up money. I didn't.
I said that I categorically reject.
No,
the
you
notion.
said, and I quote, and everybody on this panel and the people that are going to watch this in the future will hear you say this, because just because you have more money doesn't mean you care more. You brought up money. I didn't.
That's fine. And if we want to turn that into the salary structures prove that they care more, that's fine. But I disagree. I disagree. There is not more passion in the SEC than other conferences by and large. It just isn't. There are better athletes, and that's fine. That's fine. But there's not better athletes in European athletics than there are in American athletics. But we know that the Europeans care more about the sport. So
they're two
how
different.
does that work?
But see, you're trying to combine the two, and they're not to be combined. It's a European athletics versus the other athletics
as a combination.
No, it's not. We're reading it that way, but it's not. And I've just explained to you twice now that's not set up that way.
It wasn't meant to be set up that way. I'll say
exactly.
That. I know the genesis. I know the genesis of the question. It wasn't meant to be set up that way.
So the genesis of the question is, okay, in the SEC in comparison to the other conferences, which you totally reject, why does it mean more to the SEC than the other conferences? And then why does it mean more to European athletics than it does to USA Track and Field and some of the other associations? That's the way the question is
right. And so I'm starting off, and I will say again, it just means more is a cute catchphrase that the SEC has coined for advertising, and it's cute and it works, and I get it. But we're talking about track and field. I categorically reject that SEC just means more in track and field. It doesn't. You have better athletes. I get that. I'm an alumni. I'm not hating on a thing that I don't understand. I'm part of it.
Okay,
but
so
sorry, I didn't. That's not my experience as an athlete. It wasn't my experience as a coach.
Okay, so my retort to that, and again, this isn't my question. Somebody asked me to ask the question of you guys, and I really want to see what Lamar and the governor and BLC have to say about this. But I think for me, the things I just said to you proves that it does mean more. Because if we're going to talk about the salaries, which you brought up, okay, the SEC is willing to pay. If you talk about the coaches who go out and get said talent that you talk about, I mean, there seems to be, a little bit more of a sense of urgency within the track and field world in the SEC.
At every campus?
From top to bottom in the SEC, it means more to catch
it might mean more in Gatorland.
Hold on a second. All right. So
but
I challenge you, okay. We got 14 teams in this league.
Who knows? This week?
It's 14. It's 14. It's 14.
I think 14 until you get Oklahoma and Texas.
Okay, exactly. Of the 14 teams in this league, the majority of them care, and they care at a high level, a very high level.
I'm going to step in here, and I actually have a very special experience having been at Missouri when Missouri joined the SEC, and I can categorically tell you that once we had that meeting with the commissioner and we walked out of that room and we were told what it meant for Missouri to be in the SEC, everything changed. everything changed. Standards changed, protocol changed. Like all of a sudden, now you can't leave the stadium to go out and get something to eat and come back into the football stadium. All of these rules start changing, right? And as a track coach, I can tell you that everything had to change at that point, because as an alum, you know this, Chuck, if you are not prepared, if you are not ready, you are going to get embarrassed. And it's not just, let's go in there and give it the old freshman try. No, you are going to get embarrassed if you are not lined up and ready to go. And that starts at the top with support, with, all the, the people that contribute to the program, all of that, facilities, quality athletes, all of that has to change. And there wasn't a situation where, okay, we're just going to be good in football, or we're just going to be good in baseball. We're going to carve out our niche in the SEC. No, every single sport had to be better, right? So I believe that, I don't think it's just a track thing. I think every sport in the SEC and every school has a sense of urgency to go out there and put their best teams, get the best coaches, have the best resources. I believe that's top to bottom. Now,
and let me say this before, because I know Clyde's going to chime in here in just a second, but like there's a standard that we're all challenged to fight for every day.
Yes.
I remember, and I know you went to the rookie meeting for the coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's always a speaker.
Yeah.
And they brought in, when I went to the meeting, they brought in the guy that had been the LSU baseball coach forever, and he walked out of the room and like, man, you are challenged from day one to be held to a higher standard, to hold everybody else to a higher standard, to not be, the person that basically, to talk about it, drop the ball, right?
So, I mean, I can't say that in my visits to other conferences, I've been in the ACC, I'm currently in the current Conference USA and Big 12. It's not the same. It's not the same, and there isn't any way to compare. And I've never been in the Pac-12, so I don't know what the mandates are or what the expectations are. But my thought process is that it starts at the top. So the standard has to be set at the top, and then everybody else has to figure out how they're going to raise their standard. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And in my opinion, everybody in the SEC, I mean, they're trying. Now, do they have access to the resources and all of that stuff that other schools have? No. But I feel like the idea is that you have to put the best possible product on the track every single year. And I think the turnover that we're seeing in the SEC is greater than we see in other conferences. There is pressure, right?
Yeah, like, look at what happened with the hiring of the SEC track coaches this year, right?
I mean,
come on.
It is what it is. I don't think there's any question.
Not the QB.
I was about to pop.
First of all, I want to know what you're eating. Whatever it is, you're really enjoying it.
Cashews, and they are spectacular.
Yes. Okay. You are a cashew guy, so yeah, I should have known that you were eating.
That's why I muted myself. I didn't want the world to hear me chewing.
Okay.
I was going to pop some popcorn because I thought for sure Clyde was going to go. So I thought I had like 20 minutes for sure. But I actually am going to defer the SEC, the collegiate portion of this, because what I find more interesting is the other half of the question. I've always known this. I'm not going to go around the block, as you say, but I do want to bring this up. There was a moment last week where a young man got called up to the majors, and the video of him FaceTiming his mom went viral. And I texted with the governor and I said, "This is awesome." And he said he agreed. And I said, "But the unfortunate part is we'll never have this moment in track because you don't go pro. And more than likely, what is more likely to happen is you are calling home scared out of your mind because you're in a foreign country for the first time. Nobody there speaks English and you're not sure what to do." That's your "I made it to the pros" moment in track. And so given that landscape, I don't think that there's any conversation as to whether track and field means more in Europe and to Europe than it does in the United States or anywhere else. But more I want to focus on the part of the question as to why. And I think the why is a very simple one. They don't have American football. And because they don't have American football, the basis of every other sport which they enjoy is track and field. So like every world-class soccer player they have over there, every cricket guy or girl, like all except for swimming, pretty much everything that they love in Europe starts with track and field kids at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, basically training like decathletes. Like the first time I ever saw 3-foot tall cones with holes in them was in Europe. And I was like, what in God's name are these for? And the next day they had a little kid race of hurdles, and they punched holes at different hurdle heights for the little stick to go in. And that's how they ran. Like the kids started hurdling at like 5. And I was like, yeah, never in the United States, no chance. And that's kind of one of those things that, in my opinion, the reason it means more in Europe and the European athletics in particular is that's where they start, right? Like, you know, we all know that the basis of every sport that we love in the United States is track and field, but it doesn't get that respect because of football. I mean, I saw a thing, there was like 6.9 million people watched a preseason football game where literally nobody cares about the score. So like, that just tells you where we're at. So like no other sport is ever going to get the credit that it's due in the US because football literally is the 20 billion pound elephant in the room. But all the strength and conditioning for all of football comes from track and field. All the strength and conditioning from every other sport comes from track and field. And the basis of almost everything that we do in sports in the US comes from track, but it's just never treated with that kind of respect. And it's more along the lines of one of the funnier t-shirts that says like, "My sport is your sport's punishment." And that's pretty much how we get seen. Like in track, that like track is where they make you go to punish you. In other sports, like you got to go run.
I don't think you're wrong about any of that. I guess the football piece, from an American point of view and popularity, that's obviously true. But soccer in Europe is bigger than football is in America. So they don't have American football, but they don't care for American football. They care about soccer. That's the number one thing. And so, I mean, I'm not European. I didn't grow up there. I would imagine that little kids.
Can I say one thing really quick?
Go ahead.
That's a misnomer. Soccer is bigger as a fan base participant sport than football is, but not by ways of televisions. It's not even close. There are way more people that watch American football than there are that watch soccer in Europe, not globally, in Europe.
Okay. I mean, okay. I'll accept that because I don't have any data on that. I'll just accept it. All I'm saying is like, everybody, the world all understands that soccer is the number one sport globally and most definitely in Europe, right? So like I said, I'm not disagreeing with anything that you said. It just kind of threw me off that the comparative nature of what you were saying was through the lens of American football, when Europeans don't care about American football. Like, we can miss
But
them with American football.
what wasn't, but I think what he was, unless I'm mistaken, he was speaking to the fact that because of the popularity here of American football, track is outshined. Is that what you're trying to say, Lamar?
Oh, yeah, and there's no doubting that. It's
Okay.
most definitely outshined, but soccer outshines all things on that side, does it not?
Well, see, my retort to that would be, I struggle to find any athletic event that I've ever been to in Europe that's not well attended.
Sure.
See, so I think it means more because they all mean something to the Europeans. Like, there is no quote unquote hierarchy, right? Like, they support all of their sports. And I've been around a rugby situation. You've been around. We've been over there, and they have the bicycle races and all that stuff, right? And there's just thousands upon thousands of people that show up for this stuff. You turn on the TV and there's swimming in Europe, or there's basketball in Europe, in little small obscure places, and the stadiums are packed. So I think that I think it's the European culture for me that they just seem to attend in flocks to every athletic event that they have available. Football,
Well, and that's
soccer aside, yeah.
I that was kind of where I ultimately wanted to go with that particular issue, and ultimately where my point of view comes from the first half of it, right? It's a cultural thing. Europeans, by and large, in my opinion, have a better sport culture, period, than we do here. We are very specific. There's not a lot of crossover. If you're an NFL person, then you're an NFL person. And you might be, so passionate that you want to paint your face and stand naked in freezing weather. But those people don't usually care too much about baseball or basketball or hockey, right? It's a very specific thing. And so the governor alluded to in his original thing, like you brought up, you started to delve into other sports, and that's why my head was about to explode, because now we're going to say that the SEC basketball, it just means more than ACC basketball or Big Ten basketball. There's no evidence for that. And everybody's paid in basketball.
Yeah,
like,
see,
so this whole advertising campaign
field,
has infected everybody to really believe that stuff, and it's just not true.
And I knew you were gonna go there. Like you're gonna go there when it comes to the SEC, the advertising campaign, and ESPN, and all that.
They're brilliant
right?
at it. They're brilliant.
Okay. But that has nothing to do with this question. It has nothing to do with the facts that are put out there, that if you look at it across the board, if you delve into some of the things that you said, it does seem to mean more in the SEC, from the ADs to the associate ADs to the coaches to the athletes and everybody else involved with it. Track and field seems to mean more to that crowd than it does to the other conferences, because of the resources that are given to the SEC track and field community to be at a high level. That's why it seems to mean more. Now, I can't, we ain't gonna go into all that football, basketball stuff, because ESPN is not the reason why we have great track and field in Florida.
Let's not disregard, passion for the event, right? Like student athletes that come through the ranks from, high school, AAU, USATF, all of that. Parents are there, you're looking at all of this swell of attention, for these track meets. And then they get to college, and immediately the elites separate themselves from everybody else, right? And I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, because let's not get it twisted. At the D3 level, at the D2 level, there is passion for track and field.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I'm not going to disregard that at all, right? But from the standpoint of a D2 coach knowing his limits, or an AD in a D2 level telling a coach, hey, you got to figure it out. You got to figure out how you're going to, fundraise for your team this year. You got to go out and, find some way to purchase shoes for your squad or whatever, right? That's intrinsic. That coach is motivated intrinsically to go out there and provide what he can, right? Recruiting wise, he knows he's limited, right? He knows that at the D3 level, literally you're plucking kids off of campus and you're trying to, hey, you wanna come out and run? Here's some spikes, like that's okay. That is love for the event. Okay. But I feel like there are two categories when it comes to a head coach walking into his AD's office and says, hey, I need a new track next year. And the AD goes, okay, done. Right? I need a new indoor facility. Okay, done. Right? The idea is that the AD is not sitting there going, well, how am I going to spend these billions? Pockets are burning. No. That AD wants that track team to be the best track team. I correct me if I'm wrong. And I started to say, and what you're alluding to was that they've dumped money into basketball, they're dumping money. How much money have we seen the SEC dump into football? It's insane, right? But every single year, the SEC is represented at the highest level. So that is what I'm getting at. It means more because they're willing to invest more into the sport. That's
what I was making reference to. It really just depends on the perspective that you come to the question.
Yes. If
you hear that question and you see it through that lens, I understand why somebody would make that argument.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it a step further. If you want to say that the sport culture of the SEC mentality is one thing versus everyone else, I might even go there with you because they certainly believe that about themselves, right? But you're never going to convince me as someone who's worked at D1, D2, big school, small school, P5s. You're not going to convince me at all that the two championships that the University of Florida athletes won this year means more to those kids than the two championships my kids won at Division II. That's not true. But the question is, why does it mean more in the SEC? And I say that it does not.
It's not in the to the SEC.
It doesn't mean more to the SEC. The championships that you won at Florida don't mean more to your campus than championships won at D3 to those.
We're talking about, I'm going to be done with this because you're taking it somewhere it doesn't need to go. But it's not about who. It's not about what championships mean more to who. Because if you're playing Tiddlywinks and you're the national champion and I'm in rowing, the championships mean the same. But we're talking about the fact that the SEC athletic directors pour more into the SEC track programs than the other conferences do. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's a first world thing. They have the money to do it.
Okay, so does the Big 12, so does the Big 10. The Big 10 with their brand new $100 million contracts, right? So they got money, right? So it can't just be the SEC has the money because it's not about us having all the money.
So wait a minute. So Michigan didn't spend an exorbitant amount of money improving their facilities and dumping money.
Hold on a second. Okay. Don't know what Michigan. Okay, Michigan improved their facilities, but we're talking about the conference as a whole, right? If you look at the conferences as a whole, I can almost guarantee you that the salaries, if you combine all of the salaries of all the track coaches in the SEC, there's not another conference that spends the same amount of money or even close, top to bottom. Nope.
And as I said, if this is defined by money, we all know
it's not defined by money. It's defined by the money that's put into it, because it means more. Because it means more. It's not about who has the most money. It's about what they're spending on. But we'll disagree to disagree.
So
because they all have.
Okay, money. So here's a nuanced money point of view for that. If you take and I don't know, someone smarter than me can run the numbers. take what the SEC football salaries are, juxtapose them with the track and field salaries, and then do the same for all the P5 conferences. I bet you the distinction is about even.
No.
You don't think so?
No, heck no.
No, I can tell you. I can tell you unequivocally it's not in the Big Ten.
The SECs are going to win both those battles.
So did you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Of course, I understand what you're saying.
Comparatively,
seriously.
yes. Yeah, I know
But
what you mean.
I'm telling you,
So if the
question
SEC
that the
wins
Big
both
Ten
of them, how is somebody close?
the Big Ten track and field coaches make a much smaller percentage of the Big Ten football coaches' salaries than the SEC track and field coaches do of the SEC football coaches.
Nice.
Cool.
Much smaller.
I doubt that is true in the Big 12 or the Pac-12
Oh my
or
goodness.
the ACC. But again, we're just spitballing here because we're just spitballing. So this is right now just a matter of literal personal evaluation opinion. If there's numbers on that, let's run them. All I'm saying is you guys hear the question one way and I hear it a different way. When people like to say that it just means more. When I first heard that campaign, I said, oh, that's brilliant. Untrue, but brilliant. And it's only way it's true is if you're having a financial conversation.
Okay, but hold on a second. Who defines whether it's true or not? Because you're just one man with one man with one opinion.
So are you?
Because exactly, but so it clearly could mean more. Just doesn't think you just don't.
How do you quantify that?
Hold on a second. Because you can't be quantified, but because you think it's a slogan, because you think it's some kind of a campaign.
It
right?
is
because the bottom line is this, right? If you look at it again from a point of passion for the sport, right? For the sport of track and field, right? The passion that runs through the SEC from the athletic directors down to the athletes is greater than it is in the other conferences. And there's no arguing that.
I mean, probably one of the best examples of this. Do you remember a couple of years ago when the state of Louisiana was broke? Like they literally were trying to figure out how they were going to pay their bills. Sure. And one of the first things that popped up was, oh my gosh, what's going to happen at LSU? And the answer was nothing. Nothing changed. Okay? Nothing changed. And furthermore, like the first thing that's popping into my mind is like, okay, well, what's going to happen with track? What's going to happen with the sports that don't make money and all of that? Nothing happened. The support was the same. Everything, nothing changed. And
I think that's at the basis of the question. I think that the support and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, Clyde, I understand where you're coming from because I know how your mind works, right? And I knew this discussion was going to turn to. But when we're talking about basically why does it mean more to the SEC than it does to the other conferences? And now I don't think anybody can answer exactly why it seems to mean more, but clearly it seems to mean more. I don't know.
I have a theory on that.
Okay.
My theory is this, and I think I have this perspective because I've seen this play out someplace else. There are very few professional sports team distractions in SEC country.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the most passion of any fan base I've ever seen in my entire life, and I've seen quite a few, is Boise State football.
There you go.
Like on a football game day, if you go to a grocery store that's all the way across town, everybody in the grocery store that works there is going to have either blue or orange or white on with a Boise State Bronco on. And you're like, you going to the game? Like, no, but it's game day. And so like in places like Gainesville, Florida, and places like Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and places like Fayetteville, Arkansas, right? Like the pro sports team is the college, right? And so I think that to some degree is why it quote unquote means more, is because like little kids like playing around in the background, grow up wanting to be whatever Gator great came from their era, right? Not necessarily, you know, Joe Montana, if that makes any sense. Like that's my own theory to it. Because I joke about this all the time, right? Like the football realignment is all based on televisions, but the least number of televisions in any conference is in the SEC. And I've always found that fascinating and hilarious. But it's because every single television in SEC country watches every single SEC football game.
Yep.
Sure.
And
So if you're in LA, there's more going on.
Yes.
No, that was my point.
But I want to turn this back to the whole track and field discussion, right? Because if you're talking about, okay, I'm just going to use this analogy. Almost every time a school from another conference decides they want to be a national contender, the first thing out of their mouth is, we need to be an SEC-like team. That's always what they say, because we're the standard.
What do you imagine that means?
Just what it says. They want to be an SEC-like team.
But sir, the way you win your national championships is vastly different than the way Arkansas would attack it. It's different than the way LSU attacks it. It's different than the way Georgia's trying to attack it.
But we're still all SEC teams.
Right, but there's no one model that means anything. So that's what I said. It's just the thing that people say. It doesn't mean anything.
No. It does mean something, because if you're an SEC type team, that means that you are powerful enough to challenge for the championship. It absolutely means something. Whether you're Arkansas or LSU or A&M or Florida, Georgia, okay, we all had different models, but we're all challenging, okay, and that's the key. You have to be an SEC-like team to challenge for the title. That's what their thought is. So there's no saying that we're all the same model. But I don't think everybody just says, well, I just want to say that so it sounds cute. That's what you think?
I've heard that rarely, and on the few times I've heard that out of somebody's mouth, I literally ask them, what does that mean? Because in recent history, Oregon's won a lot of championships. So are they an SEC model, or are y'all an Oregon model? Like, what does that even mean? When USC wins, are they a USC model? Like, I don't know what that means.
Okay, but see, you're taking again out of context what I just said, right? The bottom line is that when it comes to collegiate track and field, the SEC is the model, right? From top to bottom. But from top to bottom, I mean from the structure, from the money, the coaching, and this is stuff that comes out of coaches' mouths. I want to make SEC-like money. You think that's just a term too? That's just something they're throwing out there? No, of course it isn't.
Financially, that's not the conversation I'm having.
Okay.
So I have input.
Okay.
So having been now in a P5 school, being at a mid-major, being at a D2 and a D3 in high school, there's always the comments, we're not the SEC. So it's the standard, it's the procedure, it's the protocol, it's the execution. So the notion of this grander thing, just in the office the other day, I made reference to Sir Lucius and the things that he's doing in regards to making sure that he wins what he's going to win, achieves the goals that he sets for his teams, his staff, and himself, right? And the comment back to me was, but he did it, he has his way of doing it because he set this forward. And I said, no, Sir Lucius has set a tide in the direction that he wants it in, because that's his procedure, protocol, and standard, right? So the SEC has done that. Looking from the bottom, looking up, it's often said, we don't have SEC money, we don't have SEC moves, we don't have SEC power to do that in our conferences. And so when I say that, I mean, well, why would you, why would our conference meets be so grand, right? We're not the SEC. We just need tents, some coolers, and a timing system. I'm being exaggerative, but to that effect.
Yeah, you are.
I mean,
I mean,
But-
thank you for making that making that clear.
but
Being a little dramatic.
I am, but to that
Just a
effect.
little
And
bit,
so,
just a
you
little
know,
bit.
like if we create a standard, then that standard is what we roll by. And it is, if that's as grand as we can be, like everyone wears that proud. Like having been on this D3 squad and they roll, I kid you not, you know, it wasn't scarlet, gray, and black. You would have thought we were blue and orange. And I'm sorry if there's specific blue or oranges, but like, that's how they rolled. And that's how we rolled the conference. And you couldn't tell us differently. And so it's like was referenced, the passion, the standard, and the execution that, quote unquote, it just means more because there's pride into it. So I think that if SEC is here, Big 12, Big 10, Pac-12, whoever this is that's rising, right? We rise the floor, not raise the ceiling. What's that saying? What I'm trying to say. If we do that, then the
Raise
quote
the floor,
unquote,
don't lower the ceiling.
yes, there you go. Then the quote unquote, it just means more, not necessarily goes away because it could be interpreted as what they've put forth, but it doesn't have the heart feeling anymore.
You see, and again, Clyde, I think, so you're referencing that slogan. It just means more. The question was, why does it seem to mean more to the SEC? Or why does it mean more to the SEC?
And so then the short, smart ass answer is because they got more money. Because
That's
I still categorically disagree that it does mean more there. It doesn't. You spend more.
Okay. It means, okay. First of all, that's categorically BS. Okay,
Sir, you
because
built.
Hold on a second. Don't talk to me about that damn football building because I'm not a football coach. Don't do it.
Who's saying that?
football
You
coach.
know I don't care about football.
Hey,
I was going to pay you a compliment.
Okay, so I want you to understand something. Okay, so I will tell you that if and the governor can speak to this. If the other conferences are as passionate about this as we are, then there's something wrong. There is. Because see, you can go pluck a school here or there from the other conferences that are successful for periods of time, but from a longevity standpoint, it's always been this league. So clearly, it means more to this league. Clearly, there's something about this league that it means more to us than the rest of the country. Because if we didn't, we wouldn't be as dominant as we are on a consistent basis, right?
I mean, I think it's time for us to move on, but I want to stick this in there, and I think the governor will like this and agree with this. What I have always found interesting, and it's based on my age, is that there was never a conversation as to what conference track and field meant the most to. It was the Southwest Conference, and like literally there was no conversation. And I don't think it was ever really about who spent the most money or any of those things, but like the Southwest Conference was always the standard. And then when the Southwest Conference broke up, I think because most of a big part of the heavy hitters from the Southwest Conference went to the SEC, and then football, the football television piece exploded, like it became that, right? And the SEC chooses to spend more of its money in sports than in more sports than the Big Ten, because the Big Ten has more money, and they spend the same amount in football and less in most other sports. They spend more in basketball, the same amount in football, and less in just about everything else.
Yeah.
But I do find it interesting, and definitely BLC, like, let's move to the next topic. But I do find it very interesting that not that long ago, I know I'm old, but when the Southwest Conference was a thing, there was no question which was the best track conference in the ethos. And I don't know. I always thought that was interesting.
There's a question there.
Okay, big league. See, Clyde, you can't get mad because you have brought out the petty in him.
Absolutely.
This is a monster you have created. And look,
and trust me on this one now.
let the record show that he is very proud of that fact too.
I am. And let the record also show, before we move on, what I was going to say to him directly was, he has built the #1 program in the country. It took a lot of work and a lot of vision to get it done. If, God forbid, he decided tomorrow to check out and go somewhere else, I don't think his passion would be less. I don't think his vision would change. I don't think the model would change. He gonna build what he gonna build because that's who the man is. That's not a Florida thing. That's a him thing. So the idea that Florida provides him pretty damn good resources to help pull it off doesn't get Gator culture more kudos from me. That's him.
That's fair. That's very fair.
And that passion exists in a lot of other places outside of the Southeast. A lot. And
okay. I totally agree with you about that. But I think the point I was trying to make to you is there's more of that in this conference than the others. That's all.
Agreed. BLC, next.
Okay.
Because you are absolutely right. There's a lot of very, very passionate coaches out
there. All right. So I told you there was going to be some stuff. And I said we were in the middle of the pool. We're not even in the deep end yet. At European Championships, they seeded the top 12 right to the semi. And then they had the other 12 spots raced for. So you had to race for the next 12, right? What are your thoughts at the tiles? What are your thoughts on that procedure, that method? And do we think this could work in the US? That was an aggressive head raise, so you have to go.
Yeah, go ahead. You're very excited to answer this question.
No, I was saying, if ain't nobody gonna say something, I'll say something.
Oh.
Okay.
I don't really care if it would work. No. The Europeans do that for whatever reasons they do that. I can only imagine that they do it to help guarantee that the top people coming in are the top people in the final. And that's what makes sense to me. If I'm thinking, why would they do that? That is not what we do here. We are not about trying to make sure that the people ranked high coming in find their way into the final. No, our model is you line your ass up and you race your way to the final. We're not about making it easier for the top seeds. That's not what we do. It's not our model. It's why our trials are the best.
May I ask you a question, sir? May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay. So it's very clear that you don't believe in it, but the question is, could it work or would it work here?
That's what I'm saying. Work to what end?
To whatever end. Like
work to what end?
Okay, this is the question is not whether you believe in the system. Like could what they do there work here? Like, could we have a system? And the answer obviously is yes, it could be done, right? So if it could be done, but without just going on and saying, okay, I don't believe in it, it's not what we do. Okay, we get that, right? So what would be the benefit, Clyde, Governor, if we did do it that way?
None. There'd be no benefit.
So I'll chime in here. And this is where I think you're at a cross section between pure unadulterated sport and professional sport. Now, what do we see in tennis? What do we see in the NFL playoffs? What do we see in basketball? I mean, we hear this word bye. You've earned a spot. You've earned a bye, right? You're going to let those wild card teams go ahead, battle it out for the right to face you. But the bottom line is this: for viewership, for the people that are watching, that truly love, or supporting the top athletes. Again, we're gonna move into this now. So Ingebrigtsen has to be in that final. Okay, I feel like that is more of a shift towards making sure that the viewing public see the best that European athletics has to offer. And for us, and from the majority of people on this side of the water, that idea is still very foreign to the folks on this side of the water. It's not part of our DNA. It's not something that, you know, we're thinking about in terms of how do you increase viewership? How do you make things more exciting? I mean, they're tinkering with stuff every single year. They're tinkering with qualifications. They're tinkering with, okay, do we see this and all of that? And the whole point, the whole idea is, how can we put more people or get more people to see the best that we have to offer, right? So that's the part for me that, you know, could it work over here? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, but everybody would have to be on board with it. And everybody would have to understand that this is a model that's designed to make sure that Fred Curley doesn't get hurt in the first round, right? And doesn't show up, you know, and isn't there at least for the semi, right? Like these are mechanisms, you know, like you cannot have an NFL season without Tom Brady. You cannot have a WTA event without Serena, right? Like these are things that, you know, when you shift from pure sport to professional sport, now you have to make decisions like this. That's just my opinion.
See, and that's something that the Lamar has been talking about forever. The true professionalism of track and field.
Yeah.
Right. And so don't get me wrong, you know, I'm the line up and get it done guy. I had no issue with that at all. And for me, whatever parameters you put before me, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna tap. But if we're talking about the things that the governor's talking about, absolutely, it's a great idea if we can keep a couple of races out of Fred Curley's legs. Mm-hmm. It's a great idea if it now allows people to double easier, not just the 1 to 2, but other events. It's a great idea from the television standpoint because I don't think anybody, I shouldn't say anybody, but very few people are tuning in for that first round anyway. But everybody's hot for the semi.
Yeah.
Right. And so as long as you're not giving this great advantage to anybody, and obviously it's probably a little bit tougher here in some events because of the depth of the events that we have, but absolutely it would work. And absolutely. And then now there's a strategy of, okay, I need to make sure that I run well enough so I don't have to run around, you know? And there's also people that don't mind running around because I don't care if I'm the top 12 or not, because I can handle it based on my training. So I think that from an overall standpoint, it absolutely could work here if we wanted it to. But some people feel the way Clyde does, absolutely.
I'm still asking the question. Work to what end? What
do you mean? What end?
Are we going to get more eyeballs on TV if we do this? Are the athletes going to make more money if we do this? Work to what end? Obviously, we can make Fred Curley's life a little easier if he doesn't have to run an extra round. But
it's not just Fred. You know, there's other athletes. Yeah. Well, that's the end that I think the governor spoke to. Is just, you know, ensuring that the better athletes have a little less in their legs.
Yes. I mean, so let's put it into context. The semis and the finals are on the same night, within 90 minutes of each other, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, Fred Curley runs the day before, gets injured, right? That is a loss from the standpoint of viewership. That is a loss from the standpoint of professional sport. The face of USA sprinting right now is not in the semis because he got injured.
But wait a minute. I understand.
Look, I'm not speaking that I'm behind it. I'm telling you that this is something. He's
just explaining why they do it.
This is why they would do it.
So okay? I'm asking. I understand it in theory, mm-hmm. but I'm asking a more reality-based question. Fred Curley got hurt early in the 200 meters at our trials this year.
Okay.
Is there any evidence that less people watched the final because he wasn't in it? I don't think there is.
See, that's okay. Now, the next.
Well, I'm sure that there's definitely evidence that I would say there are less people that watch because the people in the Fred Curley camp didn't watch it. That's at least 1 or 2 people right there, right? From the petty side of it, right?
Okay, but then the Josephus Lyles crew watched, you know what I mean? Like
I will also say this.
Yeah.
You know, track and field is probably the sport that is the most guilty of not pushing or stars to the fore. And I mean beyond just the avid track fan, right?
Absolutely.
And we have one example that we can look at from, a decade ago, Usain Bolt, that did exactly that. And I can guarantee you, if there was a situation where they could have changed things to allow him to be there for the semis, you can bet your bottom, because we've seen it. We've seen empty stadium, Bolt's running full stadium, right? So that we know that model is there. We know that the opportunity is there, right? But it also requires a lot of legwork and a lot of putting people on pedestals and a lot of, how many people truly understand how good Sydney is? Huh?
Right. There's the issue right there.
Yes.
So how do you determine who the 12 are? See, it's easier for European athletics to determine their 12 versus USATF determining their 12. There's your issue right there.
Yeah.
Right. And so I totally agree that is probably the main reason why it would be a bad idea, is because our 12 in certain events is much tougher than their 12.
Mm-hmm.
Much tougher. So from that standpoint, it's a problem.
Yeah.
But if you can determine the 12, it's not a bad thing, because again, see, I'm not even about it, assuring people get to watch it on TV, right? I don't know where it's ever a bad thing that you can earn the right to get a little extra rest because of what you did during the regular season. Because as the governor said, we do it in other sports.
Yes, we do.
But it could work here, just be a whole lot tougher, because finding the top 12 in the 100 or the 200, because there's always going to be that clump of guys right there between 9 and 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and on the women's side or whatever,
Is the European bye, I'm going to use that word, is the European bye based on seasonal best, or is it based on ranking?
I can't answer that question.
No idea.
But you all understand why that's a very crucial issue, right?
Absolutely.
100%. But the funny part is this: that's only a crucial issue in the United States. Like this is the one thing that we all have to accept. The Europeans have drank the Kool-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
From their perspective, the rankings are what they are.
Yes.
And like, meaning, okay, if you have the 11th fastest time in Europe and you're ranked 14th, and the 14th fastest person is ranked 11th and they get the bye and you don't, the European athletes and nor will their coaches complain about that. We, of course, in the United States would raise holy hell about that.
Mm-hmm.
But part of it is to Clyde's original point. I think part of what track and field fans in the United States show up for is the carnage. Like I think some of us, meaning the American track and field fan, they show up to see who's not going to make it.
Okay, so and I want to say this. Okay, so we get guys that run really fast in the first round, but how many times have we showed up in the first round to eliminate like 5 people?
Oh, I mean, listen.
Yes.
Right,
all of the time.
Now look,
right, and now why Fred ran 9.8? That's on Fred, right? But so that again, for me anyway, says like we're still only eliminating those 5 people. We're making our better people run to eliminate 5 people. Mm-hmm. So we can protect them by having them not run that. I don't see how it's a horrible idea, but I understand your point as well, though.
I'm all for I don't know. I'm all for an idea. So right now you go to US Olympic trials And for the last couple of years, it's been what, top 32 get to come in and do your thing. I'm all for a world where it's top 24 or it's top 16. I'm all for making the USA championships harder to get into. I ain't got no issue with that. And by definition, if it's harder to get into, then there's going to be less rounds. I'm cool with that. I guess my stomach turns at the idea of turning anything from our perspective into a popularity contest or to give passes to whoever because they had a hot race early in the season or whatever. Like, it's just so anti-us.
So without that system, Femke Bol does not win the 400 and the 4 hurdles at Europeans.
Absolutely.
The spectacle of her doing that and then turning around and running 48 on the 4x4, you know, for her team.
Yep.
That does not happen if she's got to run 3 rounds. It's impossible. Like,
and I'm not gonna say it wasn't cool to watch, because it was.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think so. Like, so there's two big sides to this, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, because again, it obviously it will work, or could work, or should work if we implemented it. But the problem is the implementation of the top 12 here in our country. That's the problem.
Yeah.
If the sport was professional,
See,
we would definitely do it that way.
Professional.
No,
which again is, I started this with the EP has been screaming this from day one. If the sport was professional and it was run like a league, right? Then that's exactly what would happen.
Yes.
And
right.
I think
half the reason we have the issue with the rankings.
Professional, and if it was run like a league, then we wouldn't have these obscure one-off situations all the time.
The idea
that's half the reason we have issues with the rankings.
The idea would be to preserve our best.
Yes.
And make sure they are there.
And I think, to Clyde's point, Clyde just wants to make sure they're earning that.
Yes.
That best, not just that one time. Oh, I just went out there like the guy that went out there and ran whatever and turned pro the next day, and it was
right.
And that's the point about if the sport was professional, right? If the sport was professional, then okay, I think golf does it best. Golf, I don't know if you guys know this, but to be on the PGA Tour, you have to be one of the top 125 golfers in the world.
Okay.
If you are, and if you are, I think it's if you're in the bottom 10, then you still have to go defend your spots at Q school. So they have a qualifying school to make it into the top 125 and get your tour card. If you're in the bottom 10, you have to go to Q school with those. You have to go and defend your spot.
Right.
They don't start even, by the way. Like if you were on the PGA Tour last year, you get a bye. From the first round, right? And so from the first round of cuts, and they basically have a gigantic tournament, and they take the top 10 or 12 or whatever it is, whatever the spots are to fill the spot. But what they do beyond that, like, this is where us not having a league, this is where it becomes an issue, right? When Tiger was an amateur, he could get sponsor exemptions to be in PGA events. He couldn't play the whole tour. He wasn't eligible to have PGA rankings, but the spectacle, the professional spectacle of this young cat, like, this is what's next, is valued by the entire sport. So he got sponsor exemptions and he played 3 or 4 PGA Tour events before he turned pro. And they still do that. You can still have tour exemptions for people who are not in the top 25 anymore, but they're on the senior tour. But look, if I was a PGA event, I would want John Daly in my event because he's the greatest redneck hero in the history of heroes. I watched that guy hit a hole in one in bare feet 2 days ago on Instagram. So that's there's a fan base that comes with that. And so I guess to the point is, like, nobody can tell, we've said this a million times, nobody can tell you what it takes to be a professional track and field athlete. So that just tells you by definition, like, we're not professionals. It's not a league. It's not, you can't go buy a Noah Lyles jersey.
Yep.
Right. And therein lies like where we're missing the boat for the athletes, the meat sponsors, and the overall growth of the sport in importance in the United States. The fact that you can go buy a WNBA jersey and you can't go buy, a Flamingo jersey is a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge problem. And at the end of the day, like, somebody needs to be willing to fight the fights that are necessary to make the sport professional. I think the golf model is probably the only one that will work for us. It's probably that the professional circuit is probably the top 32 in the world per event. It might be bigger, it might be smaller than that. It might be the top 24. Right. But at the interest of inclusion, the professional group of track and field athletes in the world are probably the top 24 to 32 in each event.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what the professional pool is. And then if somebody runs a time, okay, when a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when Ariane Knighton started running really fast, yeah, I'm gonna give that dude a lane in one of the, the European meets and such, because we want to see him, right? Yeah, we'll figure out how to pay him and do all that stuff, but he's not a pro yet. You know what I mean? And I think there would be something to aspire to if, as a collegian or a high schooler, you could go pro. You wouldn't, the entire sport wouldn't be slaves to the shoe companies. Like it would just be it would be a higher. I don't listen. What do I care? I don't.
No, I'm just no. I don't care about your shoe company comment. I'm saying be careful, because I know you hate the ranking system just like I do, but you almost just made their entire point of why it exists the way that it does.
So I'm going to say this. You and I differ. I don't hate the ranking system. I hate the ranking system because there is not a professional league. Yeah. I would buy holistically into the ranking system. If you tell me the top 32 people in the world are what it takes to be a pro, I'll buy that 30, 31 and 27 are different, and there's different things that happen, and some have to race and some don't. I'll buy that. The ends would definitely justify the means, and it would be best for everybody.
Yes.
The issue with the ranking system is how you get ranking points.
Yeah.
Yes.
Therein lies the lack of professionality. But here's the thing. If you think about it, in Europe, there is a track and field league.
Mm-hmm.
Of course there is.
If you get on that website and see how they operate things and how everything builds towards the Europeans, you can tell that it's a very exclusive club. You can't just show up and just go to Europeans. Like, it's
but this wouldn't be that difficult to do, right? Like,
yeah.
if you could sell it as it, like, if you could ever go to any American companies with what all of track and field is, this is the league, this is what you're buying, 100%. We could get Coke, Pepsi, McDonald's, you name it, all these global sponsors to sponsor a North American track league, a NACAC league.
Mm-hmm.
You could get all of the country sponsors in Oceania to do Australia and New Zealand and the smaller islands. Like, mm-hmm. There could be, a Far East division, a West division, a North division, and actually be relatively equal. But that's the only way you could ever actually do it, is somebody would have to define what being a professional in track and field is, so that you can take that to a sponsor and sell it. Because right now, what are you selling? If I said to you, Clyde, go sell the entire sport of global track and field to anyone, what are you selling? You can't guarantee anything. You can't tell me that Noah Lyles and Sid are going to be at a meet.
Nope.
There's no ramifications if they don't come.
Nope.
No, but the question is what you're selling. I would be selling and promoting the stars of the show.
Okay. So here's
that's the only thing we have to sell.
So what is that
worth? What's the definition of a star? Who is a star?
medalists.
Let's take, okay. Wow. And I'm gonna tell you right now, that, if you think about it, that's as moving a target as there is.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. But
That
right now,
changes-
that's how we
that
define
changes year
success
to
in our
year.
sport, right? Huh?
That changes year to year.
Mm-hmm.
No. If look, once a bronze medalist, always a bronze medalist, right? You're always in the star category if you have a medal.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So that number gets bigger every year.
Sure.
That's an issue.
Sure.
Like, look, the best part about the NFL is you know exactly how many jobs there are.
Yep.
The best part about Major League Baseball is you know exactly how many jobs there are.
Yeah,
Like
but
the
we can't
roster
compare
literally has a
this
limit.
to that because those are team sports with balls. It's just not. It's not the same thing. The golf thing was
but
good.
that's what I'm saying. Golf and tennis, there is a number, and I'm telling you, you could not sell any part of track and field to a major U.S. company because you don't have. What are you selling? You can't guarantee them anything.
Think about it this way. What, outside of losing your contract, what athlete is afraid to not be professional next year? Think about that. Like, so if there's an established parameter, this is what it means to be professional, and you have to hit a certain threshold. Forget about your shoe contract. This is what it means to be a card-carrying member of the Professional Track League.
It happened. Allison Felix ran without a contract.
Yeah,
there's a perfect example.
That's an abomination.
That's an abomination, but it only happens because there is no professionalism in the sport.
No.
So we all agree on that. There's no one's disagreeing with that.
See,
but
that's
the
big
fix.
issue to speak to the point of, there's a reason why USA Track and Field has struggled to package stuff like this because they can't get anybody to get on board.
Yeah.
The things that the EP is talking about, people have tried. And they nobody wants to be a part of it because we are absolutely the messiest sport on the planet. And the United States is where the biggest mess is. The backstabbing, okay, athlete X is with coach Y this week, and then 2 weeks later, they will coach Z, right? There's no professionalism in the sport. There's no continuity in the sport. There's definitely, no loyalty in the sport whatsoever. So there's nothing to sell here. You're going to get great performances. You're going to continue to get great performances, but behind every great performance, there's some tomfoolery that's going on that makes it not very attractive at all.
What was the biggest knock against Venus and Serena during their professional career? They didn't play enough events, and that has followed them throughout their entire career. Now, they made a point to buck the trend and say, hey, we're going to do it our way, right? But the average professional tennis player plays tournaments damn near every single week. They're moving from one place to another, and they're playing like this is, so they understand they need points. They understand they need to maintain their status. And in order to maintain their sponsorships, whatever it is, they've got to make sure they're in a certain category, right? So it's one of those things that it feeds on each other, So I find that is the one thing that, from I was competing, and we were all complaining about how Carl, races 5 times a year and ends up number 1 in the world. And the rest of us are jumping 20 times a year and nowhere near it, right? And those are the kind of things that, those parameters cannot be set by your shoe contract. Those are things that have to be set from the very top, from World Athletics, from USATF.
And think about this, okay? We understand that there's a group of 4 or 5, sometimes less, men that sit out in offices or in their homes in the track and field news crew that determine people's fate in this world.
Yep.
When did the track and field news people become the authorities? People get they get their ranking bonuses based on what those 4 or 5 people think.
Yep. The Bible, right? They call
The Bible of
themselves
the
the
sport.
Bible.
That's right. Granted, advertising is great.
That's incredible.
Right. So you come and you get ranked 5th in the world. And Carl was always going to get number 1 as long as he ran well because he was Carl.
Yes.
You know? In their minds anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so some of the rationale they use when they do some of the stuff that they do is amazing. But they hold people's fate in their hands when they do that stuff.
By the way, so to circle back and Chu, I know we got to move, but the rankings have been updated. So it's worlds, Europeans is ranked number 2.
Sure.
USA's, Commonwealth, NCAA's, NACAC, SEC's, Mediterranean Games, World U20s, Ibero-American Championships. That's the top 10.
And understand, because
read the top
he
5
glossed
again.
over that for us because we understand what he just read. He just read the list of the top ranked competitions in the world.
Where you get the most points
according to the World Athletics calculator and how they do things.
Exactly.
The problem with that is nothing that he just read on that list is based purely on performances in the competition.
Mm-hmm.
It's a combination of performance marks and bonus points because World Athletics said so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is weird. And it's done on purpose. So all I want to say about that is that's the updated one, right?
Yes.
After NACACs and after Europeans.
Yes.
Where is the NCAA championships on that list?
Number 5.
So understand.
read the top 5 again.
Worlds, Europeans, USA Championships, Commonwealth, NCAAs.
So understand how amazing the NCAA meet is, because I assure you, if you understand how this works, the NCAA is put at such a competitive disadvantage on the point system, and they're still number 5.
Number 5.
Right.
That meet is better than
Yes.
every meet on that list except Worlds.
Except Worlds.
100%.
So
here's what's wild, right? We always, and I'm gonna say this, and then Chu, it's the floor is yours. We always talk about how Euro-centered the sport is, and we always talk about how much it means to the world, right? Like to Europe. So let's be clear. If you are English, you have access to the number 1, the number 2, and the number 4 meet as far as rankings power this year.
yes.
Right.
Well, they have access to number 5 as well now.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
In theory.
Yes. But like, okay, I'll give you a perfect example. Listen, I like Nathaniel Mitchell-Blake. I think he's a really good dude, and he's a very good sprinter, right?
Yeah, solid.
But that dude's 2012 or whatever he's gonna run at Worlds, Europeans, and Commonwealth Games is going to make him untouchable by Josephus Lyles, whose PB is under 20.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
It's going to make him untouchable.
Yeah.
That's my point. That's why I have the issue with the rankings. Now, if the rankings were as they should, right? Okay, golf does it. They got 5 majors. They score the most points. Then they got tiers. If it was like that, I live with it.
Yeah.
I live with it because all area championships are not created equal. No. I'm sorry. If you're going to put U.S. championships and Commonwealth in the same conversation, like that's, sir,
exactly,
that's absurd and wild.
Yeah.
I mean,
right?
US can't go Commonwealth, so there you go. That's your bone.
U.S. championships and European championships, I actually buy. Right? Like if that was 2A and 2B, I would actually buy that. But I'll say this, I would feel pretty disrespected if I was like the Jamaican championships.
Yeah.
And they are. They're not as disrespected as the NCAA championships are, but they are disrespected.
Yeah. Big 12s were number 12 and Pac-12s are number 18 right now.
Interesting. So we
Big
all
10
agree.
make the list?
Huh?
Did the Big
Not
10
top
make the
20.
list?
Not top
Every
20.
not top 20. Every meet makes the list somewhere.
Governor, can you send me a link to that list?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm intrigued by the list.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Listen, if you're a
It was
nerd,
on Twitter this
he
week,
put the,
wasn't
he
it?
put the he, exactly. It was on, I think he put it in a group chat earlier this week.
Yes, I will.
if you're a track nerd out there, there is nothing you can do that will irritate you more and be more interesting than to teach yourself a fundamental understanding of how the rankings work.
Mhm.
I agree. I'm definitely, look, that's a challenge accepted. I will have that locked in by next week.
Jamaican champs are number 21.
See, that's so disrespectful.
Crazy. Well,
You
let's
got to
expand.
run under 1080 of the Jamaican champs on the women's side to be top 3.
Let's expand this a little bit. So different subject, same, call it parameters, since that's a loose word to be thrown around right now. With the new world standards that they've been published, and for everyone to, let's call it, take in, digest, and quote unquote understand. What are your thoughts about them? What do they mean?
Well, it's the same game.
The
It's
rankings, right?
It's literally the same game. So everybody's freaking out in social media and in the track space about, oh my God, the rankings are so difficult now. Guys, that's on purpose, because they want the world championships to be qualified by the world ranking system. So they
100%.
make the standards almost impossible. You'll have 5-6 people that can hit them, and then everybody else in the meet has to get in by the rankings.
Yeah.
I think what
Same
pissed me
game.
off the most about it, the most about it is they made it uneven for no particular reason. Like, how about you just do so, just do it in the jacked up fashion? Let's just say the world championship standard is what's 10th in the world.
I mean, that'd be clean,
right? That'd be so much cleaner. That'd be so much cleaner, because then no event could complain, right? So if you had to be top, if the standard was equal to the performance that is 10th in the world at this year's, for this year's season, everybody would get it. There would be no complaints. The issue is the standards fall so variantly on the world list. Like, okay, so one of you guys are way faster at the internet than me. I know the world championship standard of the 100, men's 100 is 10 flat. Since we've been told more than once on this show that that's serviceable, how far down the World Athletics performance list this season is 10-0-0?
You start with the U.S. list. It's probably,
100%.
15th or so. Yeah.
The U.S. list would further prove my point, right? Because there's probably 12 or 15 dudes with that standard in the U.S.
Yep.
So why is that relevant? Because I'll just go to the one that I know that's most near and dear to my heart. The decathlon standard is 8,460. There are 8 people in the world with that standard, and one of them is Ihammer, who has the second furthest long jump in the world, and he just got that standard barely last week.
Yeah.
10. There are 30 humans under 10 flat.
Yep.
Okay. So do you see what I'm saying?
11 Americans.
You make a world championship standard that 11 Americans have and 8 global people have in the decathlon. And
10,
trust me,
0 is 35 tie. There's a 30 tie for 35th.
It's worse in some other field events. I think the deck is probably, by world list, I think it might be the worst, but there's others that are right in that 7, 8, 9 range. And that just doesn't make any, like, listen, like I said, if they said the standard was 8th in the world, I'd actually be okay with it, because at least it's clean. Because the question you then have is, how did they come up with the standards? How do you get 8460 and 10 flat?
For the record, in the men's 100, if you wanted number 10 to be the standard, it would be 990.
See, that makes sense to me. What would be 10th in the 200? I'm gonna guess. I think 10th in the 200 is like Fambele and the crew at 1983.
Pretty close. Andrew Hudson, 1987.
10th in the world list. See, so that's what I'm saying. Like, why not just make it 10th across the board? Because then it would be unveiled, right? We would know what they were doing. The top 10 people get automatic qualifiers for Worlds, and then you got all these different buys that you can get, right? You got so if the NACAC champion gets in the Worlds,
so you want to give the top 10 a buy?
No, that's the auto standard. It's not a buy. They're in the meet.
Okay.
Right.
You threw me off when you said
so
I got you.
No. So you got these other, ways to get in, right? If the
So
NACAC champion gets in,
you said there were 35 people.
35 humans have run 10 flat.
Have run 10-0-0 or better.
But remember, 11 of those are Americans.
Sure.
Yes.
And only four of those Americans participate.
Yep.
Yes.
So that eliminates 7, so you're down to 28 already. And I'm sure there are other countries that have the same situation.
Yeah.
One other country, Jamaica.
Okay.
I don't think there's another country that has, you know what I'm saying? I don't think there's any other countries that have more than 4 people, more than 3 people.
Jamaica has 6.
Right. So Jamaica, and that's literally that's a 2-country problem.
So that's half the list is Jamaica and the US.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Yes. So of that 35, right? Like, listen, I like this thought. To Sir Lucius's point, of that 35, 7 are automatically disqualified from the US and 3 are automatically disqualified from Jamaica. Right? So that's 10. You still got a list of 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Like, and the number's just too big. And the reason I say it's too big is just because there should never be that kind of disparity when it comes to qualifying standards for a meet. It just shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It was too clean, and as always in world athletics world, they always miss the mark. We know what they're trying to do, right? Like, we all get it.
So would you say that the idea and the thinking is to get away from a 10-day world championship meet and start to shrink this thing, into 5 days?
I mean, if you're not going to decrease the numbers, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they have any interest in decreasing the number of days. I think they love the 10-day schedule, and they promote off the 10-day schedule.
And let's be clear this also, like, for us, like, it used to be a time when those standards were a problem for the US. They're not a problem anymore.
They're not a problem now.
Nope.
No, again, I mean, because we know how this works. Okay, the standard's 10 flat. That means next year there are going to be 20 people that run 10 flat versus 11. It's what we did.
Yeah. 18 under 20 point on the men's side.
Yeah. And I mean,
crazy.
I'm speaking for myself. I'm not complaining that the standards are too difficult. I'm complaining about the game, the shrewd game that is being played to push the ranking system, which is inept. And
I'm complaining about the uneven-handedness of the game.
Right.
Yes.
And so let's be clear. It's their game, right? So they're going to set it up so they can win. Exactly. So they're going to set it up so they can win the game. So let's not act like we're surprised at any of that.
Man. So this is what I was trying to ask. If the NACAC champion can get a bye into World Championships, does the European champion get in? That's an area championship, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So do all area championships get in?
So look at that list. It was Worlds, Europeans, USAs, NACAC, Mediterranean Games, Ibo-American Games. Those are all area championships.
All those winners get a pass.
Exactly. So
Yes.
so the idea, so here's the back door. You're now seeing what the backdoor conversation has been, right? All of these federations have gotten together and said, hey, we're getting hammered here. We're not getting our best athletes to come to our area championships. How can we make it so they see the value in coming, right? Europeans, they're well on their way. They've already established that meet as the meet. The fact that the European championships are after the world championships on the schedule, come on. Like, there are athletes that literally skipped worlds and went to
100%.
Europeans.
100%.
That is completely upside down, right? So, you gotta look at what's happening here, and the fact that these meets mean a lot when it comes to rankings, right? And incentivized these meets. Right?
And let me say this, because just through our own conversations, I do not believe that it is widely understood from an American perspective that if you go to NACAC and win,
right,
you got to pass into Worlds next year.
There you go.
Because
Clearly
if you look
it
at the
is not.
roster of who went to NACAC, there's no way that people understood that. Coaches don't know that. Athletes don't know that. Agents, it's your job to know that.
Exactly.
So,
like when I brought that in our group chat, a couple of y'all didn't know that, and I was like, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I only know that because the Bahamian decathletes were split. One was at World Championships and one was at Commonwealth Games for that very reason.
Wow. That's amazing.
Well,
True.
like I said, you all looked at me crazy when I said debauchery, and there you have it. You're welcome. You didn't think it was coming, did you? Well, let's settle up this debauchery with a little round of would you rather. And the governor has stepped into the pool wholeheartedly. Right? No chickening out now.
Okay.
So, you ready, sir?
Yes, I am.
All right. Would you rather get a paper cut or bite your cheek?
Paper cut.
Would you rather lose your sense of smell or sense of taste?
Ooh, God.
It's like
a COVID nightmare.
I'd rather lose my sense of smell.
Would you be able to? Okay. Would you rather only be able to go out at night or only in the day?
In the day.
Would you rather
be able to go out during the day? Yes.
Yeah, got it. Would you rather have an additional round of races or an additional round of jumps? This is tailored to you, sir. This is purely tailored to you.
Jumps.
Got it.
Yes.
I had a feeling it was going to go to that one.
That's because he ain't never had no issues with qualifying.
That's funny. Would you rather get spiked or drop a discus on your toe?
Oh, God.
Discus.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
The reason is, and there was I think it was a TikTok that described what it is to like drop something on your foot. And it was like this huge, cinematic moment. And then like about 30 seconds later, all right, let's go. Let's keep going.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
All right, you win that one. Would you rather have to offer a recruit on the very first call or only on what we used to call the signing day, but like the last day before they sign? If it was a universal
on the
day.
call. On the call.
Got it.
We yes. Absolutely.
No, go ahead.
No. It's
okay.
Go ahead.
Would you rather only recruit the portal or only recruit the JUCO system?
portal.
I guess the old JUCO system, maybe not the JUCO system of recent
Ain't
years.
nobody choosing the JUCO system. On
There was back in the day,
Nobody.
maybe not when the
Oh,
portal
no.
existed. Would you rather race or jump in a speed suit or a two-piece? I guess a one-piece
speed-
versus a two-piece.
Two.
Got it.
Hated
Gentlemen,
ones.
I mean, you're just, yeah, I'm not going to go there. Gentlemen, it's all yours. The wheels are spinning.
Okay, so let's see. So I was going to say, would you rather coach in the ACC or the SEC? But I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna be that petty. Okay, I just wanted to make Clyde laugh again. See, Clyde, you taught me well when you rubbed off on me. You rubbed off on me.
Oh,
the answer
man.
to that question is which campus?
This is true as well. So would you rather learn to coach the shot put or learn to coach a pole vault at a very high level?
Pole vault. I mean, that event still to this day, it intrigues me. All the intricacies, the nuances, you know, I mean, moving the bars and all that stuff, and what goes into
it should be illegal to have to coach the pole vault.
It is insane. Like I can imagine. I wonder if anyone's ever written pole vault for dummies, like a handbook, because that handbook would be about this thick. Because the amount of scenarios that would just pop up, like, come on, man. I mean, it's crazy. And then the jargon, like when you're describing the poles, and come on, man, I no idea.
All right, sir. It's not an either or.
Okay.
But if you had to leave collegiate athletics as a profession and work directly for a federation as a professional coach, which federation would it be?
In what capacity? Like, am I talking like front office? Are we talking?
No. As a coach, sprint coach, jump coach, whatever you coach, which federation would you prefer to work for?
I think it's a toss-up between Qatar and Bahrain.
Oh my God. That man wants to coach for the bag.
Wow. I understand.
He's trying to
wow.
coach for that $180,000 bag.
Great
Absolutely.
answer, Governor.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess it's my turn.
Yeah,
that was great.
Actually, or is it yours, Big League? Oh, you asked all the questions. I forgot. I'm trying to be, you know.
Wow. You okay?
There's nothing in the cup of water, just so we're clear.
Okay.
Water and limes, I promise. Oh man. I'm trying to be good. Trying to have a good one.
What was you doing the whole time we were asking questions?
I was laughing at the questions. Okay. If you were allowed to go back in the Wayback Machine and you're just about to be a professional, but you had to change event groups altogether. So you could not be a jumper and you could not be a sprinter.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be a walker, a thrower, or a distance runner?
Thrower. Walking and long distance. Oof.
Aren't they basically one and the same?
Not in my DNA. No.
I just want to picture. I want to picture the governor's calves as a race walker.
No.
Oh
No. That's as easy as it gets. Oh man.
Oh my God.
That's funny. Well, that rounds out Would You Rather. We'll wrap up real quick with some heartbeat props because we've missed them for a couple weeks. I'll start us off. Just quick heartbeat props to all of the viewers who either give the tiles feedback, comment on the YouTube video or whatever, but specifically to Coach Turner and Coach Salva, because they reached out to me personally and expressed the learning moments in different episodes recently, as well as like, hey, you said something, or one of the tiles had said something and I took it to heart. So now I'm going to ask you all for help. And so that has come to fruition for, I think, each of us at certain points in time, but definitely recently too. So heartbeat props out specifically to Coach Turner and Coach Salva, but definitely for everybody who gets to learn for 3 to 3 hours, depends on how long the episode is, at those every moment.
Mine will be short and simple. I think I could speak for all of us on this one. My heartbeat props go out to Udon Cheek, who has always provided us our intro soundtracks and has, as you now heard in the beginning, found some time to get the governor officially added to the soundtrack. It is unpaid, work, and we appreciate it, brother. It's a great soundtrack, and we appreciate you helping us in that capacity. But thank you for getting that done for us, man.
I wanted to just give a heartbeat props to our incoming athletes, all sports. Yesterday, this Sunday and yesterday were, kind of the rah-rah moments for them. And to think that this past weekend was the first time in 3 years that we have done this in person. It kind of brings it home as to how special, it is to be able to get these kids, the proper entrance to, such an important part of their lives. And heartbeat props goes out to the incoming class, and, looking forward to great things in 2022 and 23.
I want to give heartbeat props to all the head and assistant coaches, trainers, and all the other people out there that are starting new jobs. I want to wish you guys all the best. Been a lot of turnover, and as we will, I'm sure, discuss more in the future, there's still a lot of turnover going on.
Yes.
Yeah, that just crossed my mind earlier today, that there's a lot of people out there starting new adventures, and just want to wish everybody all the best, and we'll see you down the road.
Sweet. Man, I actually want to give my heartbeat props to a friend of several people on this show, who didn't know the show existed until we talked about it at Commonwealth Games, and who is literally trying to catch up. I'm going to shoot my heartbeat props out to Bermuda, to one Mr. Brian Wellman, who has intermittently, since Commonwealth Games, sent me various and sundry messages on WhatsApp about how he's laughing hysterically about season 1, episode 21 or whatever it is, but he is bound and determined to catch up. So continue to soldier on, my friend. You only have 3 years worth of commentary, worth of content to watch, but I know you're watching. We appreciate you. And at some point in time, I will, without question, honor your request, and we'll have you on the show.
Anyone that can catch us up after just starting now deserves to be on the show.
Absolutely.
We just need to hear the message.
The last text I got, he was like 23 episodes in.
Yeah, sorry. By the time you get to this one, sorry. So
that's so many hours.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, you all, for again putting your time into the show. Thank you for everyone who watches and puts their time into it. We know how hard it is. And to everyone starting school, new adventures, again, well wishes, endurance, It's a marathon, not a sprint. With that said, everyone get some rest, and we'll see each other next week. Bye, everyone.
When the lights come on, the road just get to running. When the lights come on, opponents smash the plumbing. Heard you like it warm, hot, knife the butter. Truth hit them hard, knock them off that rebuttal. Tsunami, tidal wave to your puddle. Tough love punch you in the arms, little brothers. Athletics LLC, there's no others. Track and field's pace and we'll peel to go further. Hey, Wile E. Coyote, it's road runners. Feels like you know us, you've been with us the whole summer. If not for this quarantine, these four corners wouldn't be here, but we here, so start learning. You gotta earn your stripes, gotta get your scars. Show you how to fight, but show us who you are. You lack experience, but still you wanna talk. And who is actually talking to you? Circle's kinda small. Heads prevail when the backbone's strong. Gotta keep it coming, no, it won't last long. Pass it, failed, and sell the sad song. And if you don't check yourself, then that's wrong. Just trying to give you the real that you asked for. So why you keep cutting us off to ask more? We put it in slow-mo, but you fast forward. Athletics LLC, the task force.